Paltiel.
Thank you. You are participant number 2.
Sechel mechayev means that the Sechel concludes, and directs. This is what you're supposed to do, and this is what the truth is. That's when Sechel mechayev. What does that mean? It makes sense from what perspective?
It makes sense means that I'm taking from the resources I have available to me and saying that, yeah, that fits. It's appropriate according to what I know.
And in what way is it appropriate? And what do you mean it's appropriate according to what I know? Appropriate for what? From what? This is what we're talking all the time. The appropriateness could come from a negative perspective, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a positive perspective. It's like not deduction but induction. If it hurts, so it makes sense to alleviate the hurt, the pain. But from a positive perspective, there has to be an overall meaning to progress further. Like for example, I have a home. So the Odom shouldn't buy any Odom. I have a home. Now in this home, I'm going to bring furnishings in. So, it makes sense. What sense does it make? If we say, I need a chair because otherwise I'm going to be tired standing, that's not what we mean. I need a chair for the sake of having a chair, not to alleviate the difficulty that I have. I need a dining room table and chairs, bedroom set, whatever it may be. It makes sense. Why does it make sense? This comes from the ratzon.
The making sense comes from the ratzon.
The basis, without sense, is
yeah.
the ratzon. This is how the human being that's in me, I can recognize this a home.
And the word mechayev,
Now, the way it is in the ratzon does not have furnishings or anything else. Ratzon has a human value set principle. On the basis of that human value principle, Sechel can reflect and says, okay, from a human value perspective, this is what you're supposed to have in a home. And the Sechel then is mechayev. Says a home without a dining room table and chairs is not respectful for the human being. That's mechayev, a logical imperative. It becomes a logical imperative only if you have a ratzon to live like a human being. If you don't have that ratzon, then it's not a logical imperative. Being tired standing up, a dog also lies down to sleep. Okay. All right, we'll start on the line. It's a few lines below the middle of the page on Zion, and on the line that begins with the word hu. Mehelem al hagilu levad. Hiseirus haratzon, because he mentions without elaboration. He says that the Sechel is based on the ratzon hiseirus haratzon, a ratzon that has been aroused. In other words, as we talked about it, there is the ratzon at a much higher level. The ratzon, as it is part and parcel of the nefesh. Then there is a ratzon that is already in an active state, misoirev. It has been aroused. And hiseirus ratzon, this is what brings about the sechel. Because the ratzon, as it is in the innate state, part and parcel of the nefesh itself, Sechel has no access to that. Which is above Sechel, above identification. And as we discussed yesterday, that initially, where does ratzon come from initially? Initially, the ratzon is the godly command to the godly presence itself in the nefesh. Was the Rebbe created the world with a mission, with a purpose. Like we said, Ruch HaMashiach, Remember that one? And that is present in every neshama. This Ruach HaMashiach, this is Meibash's presence itself in the person. This is what says the neshama is alive. And there is reality. And it has a mission, but it does not identify with this mission. Consciously, so to speak. The Eibusha has put it there and given the mission. Now, Hisirus ratzon is when it identifies with the mission. Here's what I want to do. The reason I want to do it is because that is a derivative of the ratzon atzmi. From that, Hisirus ratzon comes Sechel. Sechel identifies that ratzon on a practical level. I want this, I want that. Sechel does not speak in terms of I want. You have to have it. This is the right thing to have. Because the ratzon, this is the basis of reality.
The ratzon that you discuss it now, like in neshama, is a like it says that the interesting desire to have tziduk b'tachtonim. So by means of that, neshama has that ratzon that's automatically because it's part of the Eibishter. I mean, or it has to be. It is some active process to be like you said, Eibishter send it or shlichus or something like that. Or it sounds like it's the same thing.
Well, I explained that in the neshama there is that part which is, that level which is really not even part of the neshama. This is the Eibusha himself. That's what Eibusha created the neshama. But this is the Mishaleach we spoke yesterday. Pardon me, I see that there's cups. In overall existence, the Rambam says that it is imperative that we know that there is a first being. Being did not start with there being a world. Being started with the first being. There's nothing to do with world. World is definitely a derivative, a representative of that. But that's already on a much lower level. But there's a first being that is first. This is not the being that we identify. Similarly, in the nefesh, in ratzon nefesh, there is the nefesh, the motivation in that ratzon. This is the Rebbe himself, Beis and ratzon. And that is given to the nefesh. The nefesh is vayipa be'apa v'nishmas chayim. I mean, man denofet miteicha yofe. He gave something of himself into the nefesh, and therefore that's why the nefesh has that element. But it's not that the nefesh identifies with that. It's still part of the giver, of the motzerishi. Then there is a hisirus ratzon. That already is a specific nefesh element.
That's like the guy finding out that his flight got, changed to the place the Rebbe said gave him $1. In other words, it's like further along the line.
That's what I said yesterday, that when the flight dropped him in that place, or disembarked him in that place, and he was walking around, he's still not himself. He's still walking on the basis of Rebbe's present. Rebbe gave him $1. He has to get rid of it. When he meets up with a person and he finds his niche, how am I, that's when it becomes his ratzon. And he knows what he is doing.
That's the Hisayrus.
That's what he says.
This is ratzon by the nefesh. It occurs when it comes in contact, with the world, or prior.
What he says?
Yeah.
He says ratzon, yes. It is when he is in an environment where he has to be, he has a mission to influence. What you say, ratzon? We speak all the time of the principle, the Gemara says, Odom shein lebayis in the Odom. This union that Odom shein lebayis in the Odom is also in the ratzon Odom. But this is not an element of Hisayrus ratzon. This is inherent in the Odom. This is the presence of Odom as declared by the Meibesh himself. Then, once he is Odom, then he realizes that really they have to develop that bias. That's really on the basis of the presence of a bias, of being an Odom. He's already an Odom. Now, how do you live in the house? That's the way it goes into the category of Hisayrus ratzon.
Or how do you have the house in the first place? Like, to have the house, when he comes to identify that, yes, I want to have a home, that's also Hisayrus, no?
Well, I'm trying to give you a perspective at many different levels. The Ayin that he needs a house is higher than ratzon on a house, because this is Ein Odom. This is defined by his Creator.
Sounds like it's quite a journey to even get to the Hisayrus ratzon.
Yeah, of course. There are people like we spoke about this. What's his name again? He didn't have any desire to have a home. Hobby use. He identified exclusively with the tangible, with his money, not with his presence in the world. He didn't have a positive presence in the world. All his money was to forestall any kind of pain, any kind of discomfort. He didn't bring him in a real presence in the world. All right. So again, we are on the line. A few lines below the middle of the page. The line begins. Hu mehel malagil levad. V'adugma was yuvan l'mayla. No. What did I ask you that? A week ago, I asked you. Speak up, because they won't listen. They won't hear your wisdom. Come on.
I asked you, if the arousal is coming from within or without. You explained that it's coming from within. So now this explanation that you're giving me is fitting in with that it comes from within, even though it was, so to speak, when he, let's say an example of the dollar, so that at that point, in the context of where he now is, and he says, okay, so what am I going to do with this? How am I going to do what that ever wants? Is that, we still say that's an inner or an outer? To Yehuda, you explained it's an outer. It's an external situation that now is prompting him to figure out how he's going to distribute it.
Okay, see this union of internal or external. We lose sight of this, and I'm going to explain again. I'm going to go to the basic principle, and you'll see how that'll alleviate the whole question. External by Ayin, by human being, is also internal. We explained many times. The Gemara says, if the Torah would not have been given, then we were able to learn tznius mechosam. We learn tznius from a cat. People learn tznius from a cat. Isn't that insulting? The human being couldn't figure out the principle of tznius. And then he mimics the cat and says, I cannot be less than a cat. I have to act like the cat. Right? What's the Gemara saying? What's the explanation? We said it many times. We would not be mimicking the cat. We have our intelligence. But our intelligence is based on a much superior, higher level. On the godly truth. We don't know how to translate it in this mundane world. We observe the cat sneeze and say, oh yeah, it makes sense. This is how we can bring the godly purity into this mundane world. But the way we learn from it is we learn it. It's in our way. That which once we observe it, the cat has no access to our sense of its correctness. So, did we learn it from? Is it external or is it internal? If it were not for the internal sense of the godly truth and purity, we would never learn this. We would then be mimicking the cat. I don't see a dog mimicking a cat. Dog is as a dog as a dog could be. Even though it observes the cat all the time. By us, everything is internal. Unless we give up. Like I said, I give up being a human being. I'm just going to fit in, make everybody think I'm a human being.
Give up, I'm going to make everybody think. That
I give up on being myself.
It means that you're not interested in being in touch with yourself.
Right. All right, again, so the dugma, the reflection, the similar inyan, the way we discussed it in the ratzon, in the process of ratzon and Sechel. All this, the dugma is not only in ratzon and Sechel, but the various other illustrations of the principle of Helem and Gilur, Pnimi, Makif and Pnimi. And we gave several illustrations of that, Rav Talmud and so forth. Ashpiyo Mekabel. Similarly, in L'mayla. The Makif, who that L'mayla too, the Makif is Moker HaPnimi, is the source of the Pnimi. V'yiker his Chadshus hu b'pchinas HaMakif. And the principle of his Chadshus, where that is his Chadshus take place, it takes place in the aspect of the Makif. Within the Makif, this is where his Chadshus takes place. That's Iker his Chadshus. The Makif already, even though it's a Makif, it's a much higher level. It's only Makif, it cannot be translated on a specific practical level. Mm-hmm. But this is a Makif, meaning it has already a presence. Like we said just a moment ago, a home. A home is nothing. You come into the home, it's empty. It doesn't really make you feel like a human being. But as a derivative of the home, is that you can settle in a very human and accountable manner, a respectable manner. So the Makif already contains all that you eventually draw from it and recognize how the Makif can be utilized and developed into a real life. The Milo too, the Makif already perceived and conceptualized everything that will come later in Pnimi. But here this is on a Makif level. And it is a big difference between the way it is in a Makif level and the way it comes on in the Pnimi level. And I want to, before we get into it, I want to point this out, we're right in there. On the Makif level, you say you have to have a dining room table, a dining room chair, a set. You have to have a dining room set because that makes a home a home. Not because that makes it a comfortable living experience. You can invite guests. You're not thinking in terms, there is not a practical demand for it. This is what it means to have a home. In other words, it's a derivative of the home concept rather than the using of the home concept. So at that time, it's still not Pnimi. It's a Pnimi within the Makif. Within the Makif, there's all the Pnimi. Once that is developed, that is drawn out, then you can relate to the Pnimi itself. A table, oh yeah, that really serves well in a practical way. On a much more definitive level. This is that the Makif, this is where Iker is Chadshus. Odom Shein Beis and the Odom we discussed many times. And here is where we can clearly identify with it. The Beis, this is what brings the person into the world. He is for real here. He's not just a visitor, he's really here. This already is his Chadshus. This is a completely new perspective. Because to be properly in the world, you have to have a table, you have to act like a human being, you have to eat and share, not on the floor.
What's the Chadshus, having the house or having the furnishings? Or both?
Everything that is a derivative of the house, that is his Chadshus. Eventually it surfaces. But this is only his Chadshus. From the nefesh perspective, so the ratzon ha-nefesh, there is no house, there is no table.
So here we're not using hischadshus as opposed to like yitzira, like in other words, the table, all the furnishings. We're saying is a hischadshus because it's on the level of mitzias.
Right.
But really, the ikar hischadshus is when it first comes into makif, when he first.
That's where
And
the
then everything
idea
else
is
is
identified.
everything else is derivative, meaning it's not really hischadshus. It's a further development.
That's what
of
he said. Ik and his chachus is in the makif. Ik and his chachus is in the context. And then, from that is drawn on the pnimi. The pnimi is already on the completely different. I fully understand the function of a table. That's the pnimi.
But it still existed on the level of makiv, but just not in such a worldly
Right.
context.
In
That's
Makif,
it-
this is where the idea was created.
And that's his chachus. So.
That's his chachus. That's hier his chachus. Yeah.
Like from the ratzon or Soros ratzon point of view, just I want to be the nefesh says I want to be in this world. I want to affect this world. And then when it's kind of like okay, so this is this world, and what is this and so there is a table to in a home, and Rosa says yes, exactly, that's exactly what I want. That I'm just confused how it's contained within. Like I mean, that's how it's contained within the ratzon. It says yeah, exactly. If you bring not table to the dining room, or you bring a car in the dining room, so the ratzon not gonna say that that's what I want.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's a this.
I, again, when you speak, I have to focus in and understand where you're coming from.
I'm coming from you saying that everything is included in the ratzon, that the home is included, the table is included in the ratzon.
That's right.
So I'm trying to understand in which way is it included in the ratzon, and I'm trying to.
It is included in the ratzon in the sense that the ratzon said, like you said before, I want to be effective in the world.
So the table per se, like in the world, is derivative of lower of a Sechel that puts
That's
up
right.
the table, and then ratzon is that's exactly what I want.
And the ratzon provides for it. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. That will. This will make me effective in the world.
effective in the world.
The ratzon remains the ratzon.
So that's what it means. It's the makif remains makif. Makif doesn't.
That's right. The makif remains makif, but all the pnimi is drawn from the makif.
But as a it's being drawn from the makif is based on this impetus that ratzon gives, right?
Yeah.
An identification of that comes later.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. In the ratzon there is no tables and chairs.
Right.
All right, we always stayed a little bit. This is it for this morning. And tonight is Thursday evening, so we'll meet again in Nissan. Have a great day.